This is a lesson for Chapter 8, Section 5, titled Factoring. And we're factoring in this form. It's a trinomial in the form of x squared plus bx plus c. b and c are just coefficient in front of x, and c's are constant. We're looking at the first day here. So our problems, when we factor, I like to think of FOIL as I factor. And so remember how the first terms end up making this value right here, the y squared in this case. And the last terms end up making the 6. And where we get the 5y? Well, it's the sum of the outer and inner terms. And that's what I'm looking for as I'm coming up with my answer. So when I do it, first thing I see is a y squared. The only way to make y squared is y times y. Now, since the last term is positive, that means the sign has to be the same. So this plus sign right here means we have the same sign. And since I have the same sign, I look at the middle term, the outer term and inner term, they sum to make 5y, and it's a positive, so I know both signs are positive. Now I need to find numbers that multiply to make 6, but they have to add to make 5. So you see 6 and 1 multiply to make 6, but those add to make 7. So I'm going to try 2 and 3. And it doesn't matter the order as long as you have those two numbers there, and it'll work. You see, y times y makes y squared. 2 times 3 makes 6. So I know the first terms and last terms are right. The key is to check the outside terms and the inside terms. And you see these make 2y and these make 3y, and those add together to make 5y. So I know this is the correct factored form. So taking a look at the next one, same sort of thing. I'm going to look at the first term, and I need to make t squared. So I know it's got to be t and t. See, t times t makes the t squared. Now the last term's positive, so that means they're the same sign. They add to make a positive. So that tells me both signs are plus. So now I need numbers that multiply to make 18. A few different options here. So for instance, like 2 and 9 multiply to make 18. But you see, these aren't right, because when I go ahead and check the outside and inside terms, this would be 2t and 9t make a total of 11t. And you see that doesn't match what I have here. So what that tells me, though, is I need to make the numbers closer together. And so if I get the numbers closer together, it's going to make a smaller sum. So I'm going to go ahead and erase what I did there and try something else. And so know that 9 and 2 do not work, and so we won't try that one again. So let's take a look at some other numbers. Some other numbers that are factors of 18 are 6 and 3. These numbers are closer together, and that's going to give us a sum that's going to be smaller as well. And so let's check and see if it's right. We get 3t, and we check the outside terms, and they make 6t, and you see those do make 9t. And that matches our middle term, so I know this is the right answer here, the factored form. So same thing on this one. We're going to look at the x and x make x squared. Positive sign here, so that means we have the same sign. Since the outside and inside terms add to make a positive, that means we know we have both plus signs. Now the numbers that come to mind are 9 and 7. Those multiply to make 63, but you have to check the outside terms and the inside terms to see what they multiply to make, and add them together to see if they do make 16. And sure enough, these two do make 16, so we know we are correct. Well, the difference between these problems and the ones we just saw, we now have a minus sign in front of the last term. So we still have the plus sign in front of, or actually minus sign for the middle term. We have the plus sign in front of the last term, which means we have the same sign. You see, two numbers that multiply to make a positive have to be the same sign. We know they're both negative because they multiply to make a negative, or add to make a negative. So the numbers that multiply to make 35, well, I'm thinking of 5 times by 7. And we check the inside terms, negative 5n. The outside terms are over here, negative 7n. And you see how those do add together to make a negative 12n. So it matches. So we know our factored form is correct. Same thing here. We have r times r makes r squared. And I know both signs are negative because they multiply to make a negative and add to make multiply to make a positive and add to make a negative. And the numbers that come to my mind are 9 and 3. Let's see if it works. So 9 times r makes 9r. 3 times r makes 3r, and those do add to make 12r. And so that does end up working out, so we know we are correct. Well, this next one we have q squared. So we've got q times q makes a q squared. And we got lots of numbers that multiply to make 20. I know both signs are negative again because they multiply to make a positive and add to make a negative. So I could try 4 and 5. That comes to my mind, but watch what happens when I go ahead and add the outside and inside terms. It doesn't make enough. You see, when I go ahead and add them, I get 4 and 5 make 9, and that doesn't add to make 12. So since my numbers are close together, it's going to make a smaller sum. So I'm going to do the opposite of what I did last time I made the mistake, or didn't get the right numbers. I'm going to try to make the numbers further apart. So the numbers that are factors that are further apart would be 2 and 10. Let's see if those end up working out here. So let me erase the 4 and the 5. And we'll try a 2 and a 10. It doesn't matter if you do 10 and 2, 2 and 10, does not matter. Either one's going to give you the right answer. And you see negative 2t, or negative 2q, negative 10q adds to make the negative 12q. And again, these were negatives, so they all add to make a negative in this case here. And moving back to this type, I have a w squared, so I know w times w makes w squared. And again, the quick numbers, well, first of all, we know the signs, both positive, because they multiply to make a positive, add to make a positive. Now here I see that 10 and 6 don't quite work. Those add to make 16, not 19. So I need to make the numbers further apart. So sometimes people get stuck. They can't quite think of what would multiply to make the 16, or 60. So what you can do is break it down. So I know that like 30 times 2 multiplies to make 60. But those two numbers are too far apart. They add to make 32. So I need to continue breaking this number down, maybe like 6 and 5. And then I can break the 6 down to like maybe 3 and 2. And then I can combine some of these factors. You know, the factors of 60 are 3, 2, 5, and 2. So let's go ahead and group the 3 and the 5 together and see what happens. That's 15. And then I have the 2, and the 2 makes 4. And you see those multiply to make 60 also. And those two numbers do add to make 19. So I'm going to put those two values in there. And that works out. So again, you can see that 15w and 4w, those add to make 19w. But then 15 and 4 multiply to make 60. So it does work out. So looking at the next one, here I have b squared. Okay, so b and b are the only numbers that multiply to make b squared. Both are negative signs because they add to make a negative. And numbers that add to make 11 but multiply to make 24, let's try 8 and 3. Negative 8b and negative 3b. Lots of numbers again that make 24, but there's only one in which the factors add to make 11, and that would be 8 and 3. Well, this last one here, so this one's kind of tricky for some people because they're always thinking of breaking the number down, but we don't always break the number down, especially with ones that are composite numbers. Sometimes they just stay as that number in 1, and that's in this case here. So again, both signs are positive because of the plus sign here, and that's what we're going to see on tonight's homework. And here, they're negative. That means they add to make a negative. So if we try 12 and 1, those multiply to make 12, and you see how they add to make negative 13 when we go ahead and do the multiplication and then the addition. And that's what we end up getting. So let's take a look at the last type of problem here. What's different about this is that we have the extra variable. So what it's going to look like is this. We've got g squared is g times g. We know the signs because the last number is positive, so that tells us that both signs are going to be negative since they have to be the same sign, but they add to make a positive. So when I get 42, I'm going to try 6 and 7 to make 42, but I need to make an h squared, so it's got to be 6h and 7h will multiply to make 42h squared. Let's check and see if the outside and inside terms add to make negative 13. hg, or gh. So this makes negative 6gh, and this makes negative 7gh. And those two do add to make negative 13gh. So it does work out, and that would be our answer. So that's the difference here, is that you're going to have that extra variable involved in the problem. Looking at the next one here, we've got s squared. It's going to be s times s. 2 plus signs this time. Numbers that multiply to make 72, I'm thinking of 8 and 9, and they've got to have a t and a t after them because they multiply to make 72t squared. Let's check the outside and inside term. See if they make that 17st. So here we have 8st, 9st, and sure enough those two do add to make 17st, so it does work out. So those are the types of problems you're going to see on tonight's assignment. Good luck.